Washington coach, new Washington coach Danny Sprinkle joins us here on the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. Although I got to ask you this: is it Danny or Dan? Like, did you have a say over this? Because everyone calls you Sprink, but
well, it's Daniel. But
okay,
Danny. I've been called a lot worse, so I'll take Danny though.
Okay,
that's what everybody's always called me.
Well, fair enough. Danny Sprinkle joins us here, and new surroundings yet again. I'm wondering. Actually, you know what? Off the top. You get the job. I'm curious. With everything that comes with it, roster flip, I got a whole list of schools and where guys were. We're getting to that. Have you had, like, 2 off days? Like, 3 off days?
No.
So, nonstop. So genuine, like, health, well-being question here. Like, how do you find any kind of balance to prevent yourself from, getting too far off the track there when you know you got a big job to do, but you have so little time to try and stabilize your life?
Yeah, it's hard because your whole life gets thrown literally upside down when you take a new job. When we took the job, we flew right the day after we played Purdue to Seattle, and then after that, I didn't make it back to Utah until Memorial Day. So it was like 78, 79 days later, and I still got to worry about my house in Utah. I still got to, there's a lot of things you're worried about, but I had to worry about signing 11 guys.
Yeah.
And so, the pressure, of the Big Ten level and recruiting is different. And so there's a lot of things that go into it, and you don't have a lot of time to take care of yourself because you're just always thinking about others. But at some point, it comes to a head where I need to get my workout in the morning so I can get through the day and be the best for my players. And I'm just kind of now probably starting to get back to where it's feeling like a little bit of a routine.
Yeah.
Because I'm a routine guy, and I need that for me to feel good mentally. But it's been hard the first 6 months.
Well, before we get to your team, let's just dial into that just a little bit more. Was the job opportunity is really, really good, obviously. It's a step up in an elevation, but as you well know, because now you've had to do it a couple times, it's a great problem to have, but to have this great team and that there's going to be interest there, knowing what you'd have to go through again and taking a new job, like how much did it weigh on you, and how much input did your wife and family have a say in that? And just give our viewers and listeners a real insight into the 36, 48, 72 hours leading up before you say yes, the things that you're really heavily weighing on before ultimately agreeing to do it.
Yeah, there was 2 other schools that I was in serious talks with.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, being a West Coast guy, growing up in Montana, my dad played football at University of Washington. And just knowing the history and tradition, like always following the Huskies. I've always been a Husky fan, growing up. And so, like that made the decision, I wouldn't say easier, but I had a comfort level with Seattle and the University of Washington. And, spending my time as an assistant in Los Angeles area, just being more on the West Coast, it made it easier for me. But, you have talks with mentors, my parents, my sisters, and making sure everybody was on the same page, because the decision, it's not just about me,
right?
And it is hard leaving a team at Utah State where, like, I think we'd have been really good again, but it was very similar to the year before at Montana State. We'd had the best team we'd ever had in school history at Montana State. So, but I know my ultimate goal, and I know where the landscape of college basketball is going, and you kind of have to get into one of the the 4 major leagues, or you're going to get left out.
Well, let's go 5. Big East too. They got the
and
basketball.
Big East too. I followed you.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Now that you've got the job, you've made it 3 straight NCAA tournaments at Montana State and Utah State. Do you need to tweak what you're doing in order to make sure that can continue? Not even necessarily in year 1, or who knows, but what kind of evaluation personally with you and your staff do you look at it like, okay, here's what worked when I was in the Big Sky, here's what worked when I was in the Mountain West. You want to rely on some of that, but I'm wondering how much humility you have to have as a coach to understand that all that stuff probably can't translate directly to the high major level.
No question. And people ask me the same thing when I went from the Big Sky to the Mountain West, because the Mountain West is a high major level too.
Yeah.
With 6 teams getting in last year. And we did have to play different. And I'm not a good enough coach. Like, I have to coach the players I have, and I have to play to their strengths. At Montana State, we were big and physical, and we tried to just play Big Ten football in the Big Sky basketball. And so that's what we did, and we were effective with it. I knew we couldn't do that at Utah State, and so we played really fast. And had one of the best tempos and speed in all of college basketball last year. This year, I'm still figuring out our team, and it's hard with now the landscape today of the transfer portal. You can't just build a system, I don't think, anymore, where hey, I want my 4-man to be able to shoot, because you don't know what you're going to get out of the portal. You don't know what kind of center you're going to get. You just have to get the best available player that fits your community and academically and all that. And then you got to be able to put those pieces in the right place, once you get them.
If you could ballpark it, I wonder if you've been asked this, because you've got transfers from Oakland, Butler, Portland, Rice, Rhode Island, North Dakota, Oregon State, and then obviously Osborne's coming with you from Utah State. But even before we get into that roster, I'm wondering how many players do you think were either texted to you or you looked in the portal, you looked at tape? Are we talking like 300
hundreds.
Players?
Yeah, at least.
Oh.
At least.
How do they not blend in with each other?
They do.
Yeah.
They do. And you're recruiting sometimes guys for 2 days and signing them, and then you're recruiting guys for a day and getting off, and then you might recruit a transfer for 4 weeks and not get him. And because guys go off the board every day. And then there's 25 kids going into the portal that day that you got to watch film on and evaluate them, and you got their AAU coach or their trainer calling you or their head coach. And so, I mean, it's that 90 days after the season or when the portal opens, I mean, it's mentally and physically exhausting, because you're going from literally 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. every single day.
Yeah.
And not only are you watching a video, like, you have to call the kid, or you have to call his agent, you have to call his high school coach, So you're making multiple calls on each kid.
If you could wave the magic wand and say the portal should be open for how many days and what is the starting date, what would it be if it was up to you?
I'd say, right after the season, and I'd say 20 days.
So after the season, the Tuesday after the title game is done for the whole sport?
Yeah.
Okay, for 20 days.
Because that way it's fair for everybody, because those teams playing deep into the NCAA tournament, I mean, they're focusing on the most important games of the season, and yet they're still dealing with kids in the portal. There's a lot of factors that go into that, and is it fair for a school to bring a kid on an official visit while we're still playing, in the Sweet 16 or whatnot? And so, just from a competitive standpoint or a competitive advantage standpoint, but I think, kids know if they're leaving or if they're staying. And I don't, 20 days, they know, and more often than not, they know in December if they're leaving. And so, I think that'd be more than fair enough.
Let's talk about Great Osibor. If I had told you, let's go back to the day that he committed to play for you, not at Washington, to play for you, okay? And if I had found you and said, hey, just so you know, in a few years' time, it's going to be public information that the school you're employed by will have an NIL endorsement of in the $2 million plus range for this kind of player. Where would your brain have gone at that point, considering how his career has obviously progressed incredibly, coming off being the best player in the Mountain West last season?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have been shocked.
Yeah.
First thing, it's not $2 million plus, and so correct that. But
okay.
I mean, I know that's out there.
Well, his representation has said
he's getting paid well.
Yeah.
What he's worth, and so, but he's been phenomenal. But getting him, I still remember FaceTiming him because it was during COVID, and he's just back home in England, and it's a really special story because if you know where he came from. Nobody else knew about him. My assistant, Chris Haslam, who's from England, that's who got him. And so it's been really special to see him come and just grow each year from a freshman. And, he's in the best shape of his life now. And just to see he's always been very confident, but now he's proven he's a really good player. And, he's one of the most unique players in college basketball, but he's one of the most unique personalities and just people in college basketball. Like, he's fun to be around every day.
Yeah.
And, he's been a dream player for me personally, at Montana State, Utah State, and now here. And, hopefully we can do something special again this year.
He has an unparalleled career in terms of coming from England. Obviously, that country doesn't produce many Division I players, and now for him to be this good, to follow you everywhere, do you need him to be – in order for you guys to have a chance to really compete for an NCAA tournament bid, he averaged close to 18 points, 9 boards last season. Is the blatant task that you communicated with him and really the rest of the team, like he is going to be the guy, we are going to ask him to be a double-double guy night in, night out?
Yeah, he has to have a great year. For us to get to the NCAA tournament, he's got to have a special season. But the one thing he can do is he makes everybody better. He's our best passer, he's our best facilitator, our best playmaker, our best rebounder, and our best scorer right now. And so, he does so many things, but he's going to make Tyler Harris better. He's going to make Makai Mason better. Frank Kepnang, who, if we can keep him healthy, I think him and Great could be a great tandem, with Frank's athleticism and energy under the basket. And so, Great. He's that's why he's with us, and that's why he's won, preseason All Big Ten, because of his skill set and how unique. He's a 6'8", 250-pound point guard. Really is what he is.
Man, let's dig a little more into your roster for folks that are listening and watching and just trying to get a little more familiarized, even outside of Washington fans. I'm going to put you in the hot seat. I like if you had to start 5 tomorrow.
Oh, I honestly, at the point guard spot, I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Is that a good or bad thing right now that you don't know? I mean, practice has just started. So, some coaches truly in their heart of hearts know. But you right now, you're still feeling out. Because, again, you have, 11 new pieces playing together? You got a whole bunch of players that just, they don't really know each other that well, how they move on the floor. So you're still trying to decipher that day by day by day?
Yeah. And, really probably only, even on the wing, there's kind of 3 guys there that could fill those 2 spots. I think Great's kind of, everybody knows that 4 spot. He's clearly the best option there. And then even at the 5 spot with Frank Kepnang, he didn't practice all summer. And Casey Abekwe's had flashes of good moments from Oregon State, and Chris Conway from Oakland. And so that's kind of a rotating piece right now too. And we'll see once Frank becomes healthy. But he's got to obviously prove that he can do it night in and night out.
Okay, last one. I'll go a big broad question. How would you define success for the Huskies in your first year? And with the framing that you have just had, 3 incredible seasons going to the tournament. You're operating professionally at the apex of your young career so far. So now in this massively deep league, how would you define it, not knowing what awaits by the time we get to March?
Yeah, I'm not going to measure it in wins and losses. It's not fair to the program. It's almost, when we got this job, it was almost below ground zero. We had to change everything. And so I know it's going to take a little bit of time. Now, I'm not going to be patient. I still expect to win every game. That's non-negotiable, and our players know that. But I do realize we have to make sure we're developing those daily habits and we're doing things the right way to sustain success. And it is hard to sustain it in the transfer portal. Hopefully we can keep developing our young guys and keep guys for 3-4 years and kind of get in that mold like Coach Painter has going at Purdue, where you're not relying on the portal every year. Because it is hard when you're bringing in 10, 11 guys each year and your team's different. How personal they take wearing that W on their chest. Those are the guys that I want to be in our program, and that's where I think you can sustain the success.
You and I both know that fan base is aching to be relevant, and that when Washington's rolling, that building can be as good as just about any in the country. Looking forward to seeing you build it up, and hopefully a success sooner than later. Thank you so much for joining us, Danny.
You bet. Go Dogs.